In this video, I'm going to be talking to you how to come back to yourself, how to reconnect with who you are. So this process is like twofold. It's going to help you evolve spiritually, deepen your spiritual connection, but it's also going to help you heal. If you're someone who's had trauma or suffered from a lot of negativity in the past, then reconnection is what's going to ultimately heal you. And the more that you grow, the more that you're going to come back to yourself. But there's a practice that you can learn about, which we're going to talk about, which will help you understand that you are coming back in connection with yourself. And the practice is embodiment. Embodiment means you are fully in your body. It sounds pretty simple because you might be watching this thinking, well, what's he talking about? I'm always in my body. But yeah, you probably feel like you are, but you might not be fully embodied. The more embodied you get, the more you connect to yourself, the more you will be connected spiritually. But when you are not connected to yourself, you experience a lot of negativity. That's why this is also very healing for people who've had trauma or a lot of negative conditioning from their past. But also, you'll get a lot of great benefits through this embodiment or self-connection. You'll have much better emotional resiliency. So your emotions just won't get the better of you, because when you're embodied, you are also more grounded in the present moment. In the present moment, you're not getting hijacked into the past or the future. You're present, you're here now. But you need the weight of your embodiment to keep you present. Eckhart Tolle talks about this in his book, The Power of Now. I haven't read the book in a while, but I know there's a section where he talks about being more in your body, because this is the doorway to yourself. And a lot of people, like I said, are not fully connected to themselves. It will also help you with your relationships. So when you're fully connected to yourself, or more connected to yourself through embodiment, you'll find it easier to connect to other people. Other people won't scare you. You won't get triggered or feel socially anxious, for example, when you're around other people, because when you're connected to yourself you're more embodied, you have more access to all of your faculties. When you're not fully embodied, you're anxious, you're worried, you're stressed, you're getting triggered, you're reactive. So if you experience these negative things, then guess what? You're not very embodied. If you struggle with connection and getting along with other people or social anxiety, you are not very embodied. I can tell you this from personal experience. If you're conscious enough, you can even sense this, but we'll come to that later. Now, you might be wondering, well, what is stopping me from being more embodied? Well, there's a couple of things I think that are at play here. The first one is trauma. So when you've had trauma from the past, you've been through difficult circumstances and you weren't able to get out of them circumstances, you probably stored a lot of survival stress in your body. For example, you were in an overwhelming situation. You were a kid, you wanted to fight or flight, you couldn't go anywhere. That survival energy then got stuck in your system. So when that energy is stuck in your system, it takes up space. It takes up space in your nervous system. That space breaks your connection. It weakens the connection you have to yourself because there's something blocking the connection. So you need to do things to release the trauma. You can obviously look into trauma healing. I would suggest doing something like trauma release exercises, also known as TRE. These are a great way to start shaking, vibrating, which gradually over time begins to release this stored pent-up energy. But trauma is one of the first things you need to get out of your system. Second thing is repressed emotion. Now this goes hand in hand with trauma. So if you've had trauma, you're going to have a lot of repressed emotion. Even if you haven't had a lot of bad traumas, you're still probably going to have repressed emotions, right? Because you've got a shadow self. The world has constantly told you that certain parts of you are not acceptable. So we repress things. So a lot of these repressions are emotions. So you need to start to uncover what emotions am I repressing, begin to release them, because again, emotions will take up space because emotions are energy. You have a limited capacity for how much you can hold. So uncover the repressed emotion, work to release that as well. And the third thing that limits you from being more embodied is limiting belief systems. So you might believe that you're not good enough, or you might believe something about other people, or you might think that other people are judging you. Whatever your limiting beliefs are, you need to work through them. Obviously, they relate to your trauma and your emotions, so you can actually work on all these three things together. But as you begin to release limiting beliefs, it's like your body starts to open up. Where your body is tight and contracted is often because you have a limiting belief about something. So some easy ones you can work on is you might not feel good enough. You might fear certain things. Just start to look at these beliefs. When you release them or change them into positive beliefs, your body will start to open up. As your body opens up, you can become more embodied. You can bring more of your consciousness into your system. So how do we do this like practically? So I would suggest you do this in a meditative practice. There is a lot of embodiment meditations online. If you do a bit of research, it's quite easy to find. And essentially these meditations just bring you into your body. And what will happen is eventually you'll get a sense of what it feels like. It's quite a pleasurable, good feeling to be embodied. It's like a low-grade pleasure. It's not like something like getting drunk or having sex. It's not like amplified pleasure, but it's a low-grade pleasure. It just feels good being me. It feels good to be connected to myself. And when you get a sense of that, and I suggest you practice this in meditation, then you need to take this out into the world and make it an active meditation. So when you're in, say, a social situation, if you're an socially anxious person like I used to be, I would completely lose myself, and then social interactions would just be an absolute mess. But when you get used to being in connection with yourself, you know what that feels like. You go out into the world. Any situation that's triggering or makes you anxious, you can practice reconnection. Obviously, at first, it's going to be difficult because the stimulus from the external environment is quite strong and overwhelming for a lot of us. But over time and consistent practice of reconnection, you'll start to find that connection. You'll start to feel more grounded and more present. So when you see a group of people, if you are socially anxious, you might be able to just have a normal conversation. Or when you see someone who would normally trigger you, you can stay grounded and in the present moment and not get all reactive. If you are sensitive enough, you can actually sense this. When you get a feel for what it feels like to be embodied, you will actually know when you are not embodied, right? It'll become pretty obvious. And this is just a natural part of the healing and growth process. Now, I've been doing this work for a long time. Over time, I just feel like I'm more and more in my body. I forget about it. So for now, I feel like, I'm very much embodied. But maybe 6 months down the line, I'll drop even deeper into my body. I'll connect more to myself. Spiritually, I'll grow even more. So it's like your body is the doorway to yourself, your spiritual self. So start to bring more consciousness into your body. You've probably heard it said that the body is the subconscious mind. So if your body is over 90% of your programming, that's controlling you. Do you see what I mean? So your body is always reacting and responding to what's going on. But when you become more embodied, you begin to bring more power essentially into your system, so you don't react as unconsciously. You react unconsciously because you can't control the unconscious reactions. Through embodiment, you bring more power into your body, and them unconscious reactions don't have as much hold. They lose some of their power because you bring the ultimate source of power in, which is your conscious awareness. Okay, so practice this. I would suggest you start with some simple meditations. Get a feel for what connection feels like. And then practice taking that connection out into the world. This is how you are going to be the most happiest. This is where you are going to evolve more spiritually and just live a more peaceful, pleasant, positive life. Okay, so that is everything I've got to talk about. I hope this video helps some of you out. If it did, if you could please go ahead, give a like, share, subscribe. But until next time, God bless.